Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast. This is episode number 2021.3. As usual, I'm Rohan Karamandi and I am joined with Phil. Hey, Phil.
Hey, Rohan, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
This episode is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabu Casa. Easily access your local Home Assistant instance remotely for a small monthly fee that supports the Home Assistant project. Configuration is done by the user interface, so there's no fiddling with any router settings, SSL certificates, or any YAML.
This episode is sponsored by MoreBeer.com. For over 25 years, they've helped creative people like you create your own beer, wine, or coffee at home. Find out more at MoreBeer.com. Listeners of this show save $10 off their first order with promo code HASSPODCAST. That's HASS podcast.
So what's new in the world of Home Assistant?
Well, I think before we start with Home Assistant, I think we need to do another Cloud Strikes Again segment.
Again.
Yeah. Okay, so back in episode number 76, we mentioned that TP-Link started rolling out firmware which was blocking local access to TP-Link smart Wi-Fi switches.
Yep.
So after the Home Assistant community reached out to TP-Link in frustration, there was even a blog post dedicated on the Home Assistant website about it. They released a beta firmware which would re-enable local access to TP-Link smart switches and allowing Home Assistant users to connect to them. So what you'd have to do is you'd email TP-Link and say, yo, I need a beta firmware so I can re-enable local access. And they would push that out to your device. You'd give them the MAC address and they'll push it out. Troy Hunt on Twitter this week, who is a Home Assistant user down here in Australia, has shared an email from TP-Link which states that the beta firmware is no longer available from February 9th, meaning that TP-Link smart switches, which have upgraded their firmware, can no longer be controlled by Home Assistant. This is like a backflip, I guess, right? Like, damn.
This one particularly, like, and you know, sometimes I'm like, okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'll get it. This one particularly pisses me off because it's like you recognize you did something wrong. You went to go fix it. And then now you're like, okay, I'm hoping what it is I'm hoping this is just one support engineer that just wasn't informed or something like that. I don't know, but it sounded like that was not the case. That's at least that's how it was kind of presented. Right. And Troy was pretty reputable, just in the industry. I mean, if you're not familiar with Troy, he's started Have I Been Owned, which is the password, has your password been compromised somewhere or whatever. And tons of applications and stuff use that. Right. So, but so, I'm taking it on good faith that, he's probably done a little bit of research into this, but again, it's I would love to know. I mean, if people could tweet at us, right, and let us know, is that the same kind of answer you've gotten as well? Because I'm hoping that it's not just one, or sorry, I'm hoping that it is just one support engineer that's misinformed or something like that, right? But it doesn't sound like that's the case.
So we'll leave a link. There is a topic in the Home Assistant community forums. I know there's some projects out there, some Python libraries that are attempting to either find another way to access these devices or reverse engineer an API or something like that. So I'll leave a link in the show notes to that topic if you want to follow along and ask for assistance. But yeah, until then, I think if you haven't already, make sure those TP-Link smart switches are blocked from your router. I know mine are. I'm glad I have left those blocked. I just hope in the future, if I upgrade my router, I don't have enough time to upgrade.
Yeah.
But it's very disappointing.
It's frustrating, right? And it's kind of a back and forth kind of game. And personally for me, it's annoying too because and Phil and I were just talking about this offline. Is I guess just after this was announced, after the beta firmware was announced, I bought a TP-Link, what is it? Like an outdoor plug. And I'm hoping that I'm not affected, just again, on an entirely personal note, but I probably will be. Right?
Because you're going to use those for your outdoor lights, right?
Yeah, so I originally bought them just for, like our like outdoor like Christmas lights or whatever.
Yep.
So I can plug in and I can kind of control it, have it on a timer, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. This is just frustrating, right? So
Are they Wi-Fi based too? Like
they are, yeah.
Yeah, right. I'd be blocking that from you, Wi-Fi, today.
Yeah, and I suspect that's probably what I'll do. So.
All right. And then I guess, yeah, we've got some feedback from our last episode. So, Sprocket and Oh Hot Dawn, this is my Jawn. We're talking on Reddit. Gosh, I love Reddit usernames.
I know, me too.
At least it wasn't. I know there's a few people that have binary as usernames on Reddit, like those 001110. Like, I'm glad it wasn't one of those people. Anyway, so they were discussing how to use Home Assistant to track chores around the house. And a suggestion came out that was to use a Home Assistant date time entity to track when a chore has been completed. And then you can use like a template to then track, all right, this is the date it was last completed. It needs to be done every 90 days. So then use a Home Assistant template to say, all right, it needs to be done in 6 days, 5 days, 4 days. Then you can use that template to fire off automation. So, if it's getting to, for example, if you need to change an air filter somewhere, you can say, all right, it's 4 days to change the air filter, send an alert every morning at 9 a.m. But then, another use case that came out for NFC tags, which I thought was great, was having the ability to tap an NFC tag when the chore is done. So think of this like if you've got like an air filter up in like a closet or an attic somewhere, right? It's, it's tempting to just go, oh, I'll just push it out 90 days. I'll just increase the date, right? But if you've got an NFC tag in a location, right? Like it makes it so you have to go up to the NFC tag and tap it to get the chore done. Then you may as well do the chore, right? So I think that was a fantastic use case for NFC tags, something that's, if they're rarely used, they don't need power, they don't need batteries to replace.
Yeah.
And it's time saver and just marking the chore done. Similar to how security guards in some shopping malls and around that have little places that they have to walk up and tap physical places to say, I've been here at this date and time. So they aren't just eating donuts somewhere in Krispy Kreme.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, to me, this is actually really cool because it's a great use for NFC. Yep. And for me personally, and that example was a little too real about like, around changing the air filter, things like that, right? It's a good way to actually force you to go do the task.
Absolutely.
Right? Which is great. All right. So 2021.3 is here. So let's talk about some of the new features. So first of all, there's My Home Assistant. So it's a new way for websites, documentation, forum posts, things like that to link to your own private HAS instance on your network. So it'll be useful for things like, you have your install blueprint button. So let's say you're browsing the Home Assistant website, you see a blueprint that you like, you click install blueprint, and then that'll actually install it on your local Home Assistant from the Home Assistant website, right? So that URL is stored on the browser, so it can't be accessed by third-party websites. So it's not just some random, it's not that Home Assistant has your specific URL or anything like that. And then when you click that link for the first time, it'll basically ask you to keep your URL. It'll ask you what your URL is, and then you can just type that in. And based on that, it's just a quick way of being able to deploy things like that. I think this is really neat, really handy. I mean, especially when you don't have to go back and forth between your Home Assistant instance, maybe a forum post or whatever it is. To me, this makes sense, right? Oh, I'm looking at this. Oh, this is a cool feature. Click, and it's already there.
Absolutely. I think this will be a great addition to blueprints, right? Like having the ability for, bloggers like ourselves or other, Reddit posts or anything like that, just being able to say, you want to install this blueprint, click this, and it just does it, right? And it goes, it just takes out a step that a user needs to do, right? Because it'll push a person straight into their local Home Assistant instance, and it's all there ready to go. They also have cool shortcut links for things around the house, right? So if you can you go into your services page? If you're talking to someone, you're like, oh, what's the services page? Well, now with My Home Assistant, you can actually send them a URL, and when they click that URL, it will load up, and take them straight into the services area of Home Assistant. So very cool.
Yeah, and Frank actually posted a GIF of it essentially where he's going through the documentation site. It's on. He's got a thing for AdGuard. He's looking at that documentation. There's a little button there. It says Add Integration. Click it, and it actually cross launches into the into his local Home Assistant instance, and going, hey, are you sure you want to set up AdGuard Home? Click yes, and boom, off you go. Right. So again, great way to kind of do that rather than go through, start searching. You're on the documentation anyways. Just click install and off you go.
Awesome. Yeah, like can you imagine you've got Philips Hue. I'll go to the Philips Hue integration, and then in the Home Assistant documentation, there's a setup integration, and you just click that. It then pushes you over, and then you're in the Home Assistant front end, setting up your, putting in your Wi-Fi details or whatever. That's really cool, actually.
Yeah, I'll put a link to Frank's post on Twitter to that.
Awesome.
On the show notes.
All right, and a big change for, I don't know if this is just because I'm doing a lot of changes in Home Assistant or I prefer using the services area, but big change for the service calls page in the Home Assistant developers area. It's completely different. It's so much cleaner. It apparently incorporates a lot of interface elements from the new blueprints area. So there is colored buttons for areas, devices, things like that. So and also the instead of, previously you would have a drop down for the service, you still got that. Once you select the service, you now get like form elements to add in all the service attribute data. So you select your entity properly, you put, what color would you like, and you put it in a nice drop down box, similar to the way you would do it when creating a automation or a script. So much nicer. And of course, there is a button at the bottom to switch to YAML mode. So good to see that the service area has got a bit of love, and I think this is cool to start leveraging some of those new blueprint UI stuff that's coming around too.
Yeah, which is great, and hopefully that cascades through everything, right? So it's a kind of standardized UI.
Because I think they also changed the automation editor as well to support this in this release. So if you're using the UI editor of Home Assistant, you'll see this as well.
Yeah, which is great. Entity copy buttons in the states area. So if you're looking at the states of any of your entities, you can actually easily copy the entity IDs from the developer tools there. So I personally use that quite a bit. I go into the developer tools and say, hey, what's this called?
Yeah,
might be like, did I name it master bedroom temperature, or did I name it temperature master bedroom?
Exactly.
Because as much as I try to standardize, I don't.
And then when you try and copy it and you accidentally click the link and it opens up the dialogue and then go, now I have to go somewhere else to copy the entity ID. It
just gets frustrating. So this is one of those, is it, worthy of a deep conversation to say, hey, there's a button that copies? No, but to me, it's something small that makes my workflow that much easier. So that personally is something I really appreciate.
Yeah, me too. Suggested areas are now supported in Home Assistant. So when you're adding an integration, the integration can now suggest what area the device that you've just added should be added to. So for example, a Sonos speaker, it may suggest that you assign the speaker to the kitchen area. For example, if you've got like a Sonos recognizes, all right, you've added a speaker called kitchen and you have an area kitchen. Here you go. Why don't you belong, but surely this should be added to the kitchen area. Same thing with lights in Philips Hue groups. If you add a light or a group from Philips Hue, it can also, say, hey, this looks like it's in the living room, but this should probably be in the living room area in Home Assistant. So once again, Home Assistant is trying to become smarter in taking actions on behalf of users, pre-filling as much information as possible just to make things a little bit more easier and time saving.
Yep, there's nothing wrong with that. Apple TV, so if you use the Apple TV integration, Apple TV's now got shuffle, repeat, and volume stepping support. So, yay.
Yay, well done for you. Subaru and Mazda connected cars are now supported in Home Assistant. Subaru is available in the US and Canada for users with a Subaru Starling subscription, and I'm sure there will be some other sort of restriction that Mazda will have for their cars, but I believe there's no ability to automatically drive the car, so Home Assistant can't drive your car. Don't get too excited about that.
Right.
But there is sensors, so average fuel consumption, how much fuel is in the car, that sort of stuff. So if you've got one of those cars and you want to integrate it with Home Assistant, then there you go.
That's sweet. Litter robot. So the litter robot integration allows you to control, monitor your Wi-Fi enabled self-cleaning litter box for cats. Not something I thought I'd be talking about today, but there you
go. I really like these. I just like the fact that, one, there is a smart automatic self-cleaning litter box for cats, because if I ever want to own a cat, that is the last thing I want to have to deal with. And I appreciate that device, one, it exists.
Yep.
But two, it integrates with Home Assistant. So now that it's going to exist in the integrations page of Home Assistant, which is basically my shopping list, because whenever I want to buy something smart, I check that page. And now I'm going to know that, if I ever do get a cat, that is the smart little self-cleaning litter box I will need to buy.
That's right.
Oh, dear. I like it. Keep. I love these random integrations. Just keep adding them in.
That's right.
Climacell integration is a weather API with a free version. I'm hoping that it could be a possible replacement candidate for the dark sky. So you could activate a free API key, and Climacell will allow you to pull in weather data. I believe it's globally. I haven't been able to test it yet, but I'm hoping it is. And you can also use multiple locations, and Home Assistant knows that the Climacell API has a limit of 1,000 requests per day. So if you add in, 2 locations, Home Assistant will then halve the frequency that Home Assistant polls for updates for both locations, so you don't go over your 1,000 API limit per day. So that's pretty smart there too.
Nice. That's actually pretty good. All right. Speaking of climate, so templates can now be used to create weather entities. So if you have any sensors that pull in data from multiple sources, so let's say dark sky and Climacell, you can create your own weather entities from those sensors. So you can make your own weather cards, and basically based on that, you can come up with your own weather cards.
I really like this. So for people that might have their own weather station outside their house, and they want to be able to see, because right now you've got the current temperature outside, which is pulled from the weather service, right? Which can vary depending on your geographic location or how close you are to that weather station, right? I know here in Melbourne, if you're up in the city, and it can be a couple of degrees cooler down in the peninsula where you might not have a weather station, right? So being able to have your own weather station and have that data as a sensor in Home Assistant, now you can have a full-fledged weather card and a full weather entity in Home Assistant, but you can then say, all right, for the current temperature, I'm going to get my temperature from my own personal weather station out the front and have that update every 15 minutes as opposed to 4 hours or something, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be really cool. And also, how much rain has been received today, Generally, it's, rain's been received, I've received 500 mils this year, or today, right? But, your house may have had a sunshade over it the whole day, and the sun decided, nope, we're not having rain at your house today. So, being able, and then once again, tie that back into your Grafana, Influx, get more localized data.
Yeah, a little richer for your specific use case, right?
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Exactly. AEMET, Open Data Integration, is also supported, which stands for Agencia Estatal de Meteorología. I'm not even going to try and... No. I'm going to stop there. So
let's just call it the Spanish Meteorological Agency.
Exactly, thank you. So AEMET uses the open data as a source for the meteorological data for your location, but it is restricted to the Spanish territory. It does require an API key, and it's completely free. So if you can leverage that, go for it.
Smart tub integration. So now if you have a smart hot tub, not only am I going to ask to come join, I will also, no, but basically you can now view and control your hot tubs from Home Assistant, which is great. So, because I know, there might be people trying to tinker with using things like maybe a ESP home kind of integrated with like a climate thing. And so now you can kind of natively have that integration if it uses the smart tub, I guess, ecosystem.
Yeah. I really, once again, like a random thing that is in Home Assistant, is there going to be a smart tub category in the integrations page? I'm hoping so. Yeah. But I think this integration alone is very good for people that may be using Home Assistant to remotely monitor, for example, like an Airbnb environment. If you're having a holiday house that you have as an Airbnb, which has a smart tub, and you don't want those guests who have left it on when they check out, now you can remotely make sure that when no one's home, the smart tub gets turned off, all that sort of stuff. And also, I guess, even if you don't, if it's your house that you've got the smart tub, then when you leave, make sure it's not left on. Same thing, right? Save a bit of money.
Yeah, which is great.
Now, I don't know why, but brand name here, Rituals Perfume Genie. I don't know why it's called Rituals, but fair enough. Sure. So the Rituals Perfume Genie integration allows you to control and monitor your Rituals perfume diffusers connected to your Rituals account. And so the integration is compatible with the first and second versions of this product. So I guess I know I've got down here in Australia, we have a company called Kogan. They've basically got 2-year rebranded smart stuff, and I've got a 2-year rebranded oil diffuser that I've integrated with local 2-year in Home Assistant for the same purpose, right? Like you put a bit of essential oils in and have it automated when you get home, makes the house smell nice. So I really appreciate this. I do wonder how smart this Perfume Genie is tempting me. I would like to. It sounds very enticing to me. I do like the idea of just set and forget things. Like I walk in the house and the house smells nice, right?
Yeah.
But once again, very random, but clearly someone uses it in Home Assistant and wanted to integrate it into Home Assistant. So once again, I appreciate you adding that to my shopping list.
That's right. You know what? As random as this is, so this is actually, so we have like, oh God, I don't know how many diffusers my girlfriend's bought for this house. We don't live in a big house, so I think we have like 5, 6. I don't know. Like it makes me think that maybe I smell, and maybe that's why. I don't know. But every time, like what happens is like one of the big one that we have in the kitchen, because that one makes sense. You cook and all these things. It's kind of nice to kind of freshen it up a little bit, and our kitchen is kind of attached to our living room as well. So. You want to unwind, whatever, put on like a nice, like a lighter, like a lavender or something like that if you want to try whatever. So, but one thing is it's got like a built-in timer, but that timer is like 1 hour, and I think it's like 6 hours is like the next interval, or maybe there's like a 4 hour, but it's kind of like, what if I want something in between, right? So, and that's something I've always been like, oh, should I just open it up and try and jerry-rig it? Will I probably end up lighting the house on fire? Yeah. So, this is something great, and I think we need more things like this.
As we were just discussing about this, I remember seeing something like this ages ago online, and I'm actually googling it right now, and I think it might be this. There was this device that you would basically buy these cartridges, and it would mix and match like a smell. So let's say you wanted summer breeze, like it would be like how you get like your red, green, blue inkjet in a printer, right? Yeah. This machine would combine the different elements from their cartridges and create like a custom smell based on what you've dialed in, right? Ooh. So then similar to like premium. The Nanoleaf canvas, where you would have recipes created by people for light shows, people could create, I think this is a lovely smell for a Hawaiian experience in your home, right? People can share these in this app. And I'm not sure if it's this particular one. I know I've just looked up this brand, this Perfume Genie, and they have, a cartridge Sakura, which is a 30ml cartridge. They've got the Hammam cartridge. Maybe it's there is another, it might not be this one, but there is definitely a device out there. I don't know if it's smart that can do that. And I wonder if that could be that would be awesome, right? Like have a random smell. Like one of the things I hate about oil diffusers is you have to refill them, right? You have to put water in, put the oils in, right? And I have Home Assistant nudge me to say, hey, the oil diffuser attempts to turn on and there's no water in it. It'll say, hey, it's empty, go fill it up, sort of thing.
Nice.
But with this like cartridge-based system, it would be nice to have it say, hey, like, would you like this smell today? This smell, and not have to worry about refilling it. But Anyway, I've digressed. Anyway, Rituals Perfume Genie. If you haven't got it, get on it. I don't know if it's any good, but there is an integration in Home Assistant now, so it's got to be good for something.
Therefore, buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
And Ritual, if you guys want to sponsor us, we're more than welcome to. We're more than open to things. Since we just plugged you guys for the last 5 minutes. Let's talk about some breaking changes. So there's some custom integrations now that require a version key in their manifest file. So that means custom integrations now also require manifest files. So it'll create a warning when you start it up, but eventually it'll be blocked from loading if it's missing a version in its manifest file. So if you don't use custom integrations, do not worry about this.
Yeah.
If you do, then, I mean, if you use something like Hacks, I mean, for the most part, everything's in there.
I'm pretty sure if you're running through Hacks, I'm guessing Hacks will tell you, hey, this doesn't have a manifest file. It might even be required for Hacks, I think.
I would assume,
but yeah, if you're running like your own custom integration that you've made, you might have to change some file names as well to get it supported for that manifest files as well.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think like if you've created, like your own 2-year integration, or you've got some random device in your country that no one is really going to use except for yourself, and you've created a Python script, then yes, you will need to update your custom component.
Yeah, exactly. Also, congratulations, and I implore you to publish it.
Exactly. The fan entity model has changed the split named speeds into percentages in the range from 0, which is off, to 100. So, Rohan, we talked about this in the last episode. I think that's when they introduced, like the high, medium, low, and we were sort of discussing, not all fans are equal. So, calls in automations and scripts to the fan.setSpeed service need to be replaced. So, if you have a fan that has a speed, then it should be using fan.setPercentage. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you have a fan that uses a preset mode, so for example, auto, cooling, etc., like that, whatever it may be called, then you use the fan.setPreset mode service.
Right.
And, yeah.
See, this makes a lot more sense to me than the last one, right? Because it could be one or the other. Maybe my fan has just low, medium, high. Maybe it has a dial that 0 to 100, whatever that is, right?
So I think last time I used the examples of my Dyson fan, which is 0 to 10, or 1 to 10, I should say, for the Dyson fan, and then my Xiaomi fan, which is literally level 1, 2, 3, 4. So I assume that for the Xiaomi fan, I would use the preset mode, and my Dyson, I'll use set percentage. So that makes much more sense.
Yeah, exactly. MQTT cover. So the value template is now deprecated for if you're using it to extract the position. So as of 2021.6, so you still got a little bit of time. You got about 3 months. Support will be removed for using a value template. Instead, what you should be using is a position template. And this is just for MQTT covers. So if you have a garage door, let's say you have some kind of ESP32 or something like that, connected to your garage door, and you're determining position, whatever that is, and you're doing all this via MQTT, you need to care. If you use a value template to pull that to do whatever with that position value, that will stop working as of 2021.6. So again, you have a bit of time, but you can start playing with it now.
One thing that came up for me testing out the beta this week was I use Soma Control, which because I have a couple of Soma smart shades, so they're Bluetooth blind open controllers, and that project was actually was setting both a state topic and a position topic, which apparently was never allowed. And I actually raised an issue with Home Assistant, and they said, yeah, look, it's never been supported. We've just basically fixed this bug that existed for you. So I've actually just before we were starting, I was doing a pull request. So I put a pull request in for one of the Soma Control libraries that I use, which is a Node.js library. Yep. So yes, what I had the problem after upgrading to this version was that in my JSON payload for the blinds, the positions were set as strings. So the 0 was a string 0, not an integer 0, and 100, same thing. So I put a pull request in so that now the 0 and 100 must be integers in the JSON config for MQTT, and that the state topic has been removed. So if you're using your own MQTT cover and you've done something similar, or you upgrade and all of a sudden your covers have gone unknown, this is probably the reason behind it. Yeah, so just go through the documentation and check that whatever payload you're sending for your MQTT cover is compliant with the Home Assistant MQTT cover description.
Yeah, and remember, cover could be something like blinds. It could be garage doors.
Exactly.
Basically anything that moves up and down.
Yeah, open or close. Yeah,
open, close. Yeah, it comes in as a cover.
Yeah,
for the most part.
Definitely. Another change to Home Assistant that could be a breaking change for you is automation triggers on startup. So if an automation trigger template already renders as true on Home Assistant Core Startup, it will no longer trigger at startup. So think of this as, you've got a template in your, you've got platform template as your trigger, and a template is the hour less than 6. Well, if you restart your Home Assistant instance between, midnight and 6 a.m., that template will render as true. And previously, that would then trigger the automation on startup. So now when Home Assistant starts up, it will not trigger that automation. If you do need something to trigger when Home Assistant starts up, there is a special Home Assistant event platform that you can use. So you can trigger when Home Assistant starts up to trigger that automation. I would encourage you to use that. I think this is the correct behavior now moving forward. I think it could have some unintended consequences if you sort of, relied on this to set, the state of an input select somewhere on startup and all that. So yeah, I would just encourage you to check all your automations when you start up, that or all your states and everything, they're in the correct place that they should be.
Also, as of this release, Z-Wave.js or Z-Wave.js, however you want to say it, now requires a minimum version of 1.0.0. So just something to note.
Cool. And randomly, there's a new color that's been added to Home Assistant for lights. It's the Home Assistant color. Previously, you could always use the color name in the light.turn-on service with a color name like blue, red, green. Now there's Home Assistant, which will change your lights to the Home Assistant blue.
Perfect.
Rohan, what are you planning to do with that?
Probably not a whole lot. I don't have any color changing lights to start with, so definitely not. The closest thing I have are what I use in my range hood, which are the trad-free IKEA lights, which go from like just different hues of yellow or yellow, white, whatever. Cool.
Are they just like smart white bulbs?
Yeah. It literally just goes warm white to cool white and whatever in between. So yeah, so I'm planning to do not a whole lot with that. Yeah.
I guess it's it's good to see another color, I guess, of added to the list. But yeah. I think it's very random. I think Frank's just added as a little it's Easter egg for people. Yeah, so
nothing wrong with that.
If if you're listening in the future and you go, hey, yeah, I want to try out that color, there you go. It's there for you.
If you've ever wondered, how can my house look more like Home Assistant? This is how.
I wonder if maybe you could test out the color accuracy of your lights by putting up like a Home Assistant blue, that shiny metal case they've got for the Home Assistant blue. They put that up to a light changing blue. Like what color? Like what's going to be the best brand that will get closest to that Home Assistant blue? Would it be Philips Hue? Would they be the best color? Will it be Lifex that would get better? Yeah,
I don't know. That's funny.
Maybe that's a video idea for Dr. Z's or the hookup that can.
That's right.
Test it out, right?
Perfect. All right, that's our show.
Cool. That's it. Yeah, good release.
That's it.
Cool. Catch you guys next time.
Take care.
If you want to share your Home Assistant journey or come on as a guest, reach out to us at feedback@hasspodcast.io. That's HASS podcast.io.
The Home Assistant podcast is hosted by Phil Hawthorne and myself, Rohan Karamandi. For links to topics that we discussed today, check out our show notes on hasspodcast.io.